welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I'm going to be doing something similar to what I did the other day that you guys really enjoyed, and this is going to be for horror novels that you have not heard of. So I'm going to be talking about 10 different horror novels that you haven't heard of. What I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be putting together videos that I've made on this subject in the past and kind of giving you like one long list of all of the horror books that you have not heard of that I think you will absolutely enjoy. These are all books that I rated either a 4 or 5 stars that I really liked. Like I said, I did this with thrillers that you haven't heard of about a week ago or so, maybe 2 weeks ago. And you guys really enjoyed it, just having one nice long list put together rather than a bunch of separate videos, since I know that I've gotten new viewers recently that maybe not have seen some of those older videos, so it's nice to just have them all in one spot. So that's just going to be our quick little intro for today. So yeah, without further ado, here's the videos. I'm going to start off with The Binding by Nicholas Wolfe, and on my old booktube channel I did a thorough review of this, which is still up. So if you guys want to see an actual thorough review of this, you can head over to my other channel, my old booktube channel, to see a review on this one. But it says, terror has come to northern Massachusetts. Wow. Massachusetts as a brutal slang on the local college campus shatters the tranquility of this once sleepy town. But for young psychiatrist Nat Thayer and his oldest friend, Detective John Bailey, there may be more connected to this shocking act of violence than anyone could have imagined. One of Northam's patriarchs has approached Nat with a desperate plea for help, convinced that something fearful has overtaken his beautiful daughter Becca. Even though Becca is alive, she truly believes the opposite, that she was also murdered 3 weeks earlier, which Nat diagnoses as Cotard delusion, an obscure condition sometimes described as walking corpse syndrome. And as the mystery deepens, Nat and John soon understand that sinister forces may have been resurrected from Northam's disturbing history, and that some malignant secrets were not meant to stay hidden forever. So basically, there is an evil force that's kind of like coming through this town. This girl is absolutely positive that she is no longer alive, that she did die with these other people, and she's positive that she is not herself, that there's something overtaking her. So he takes on this case and he's trying to convince her that she is fine, that this is just all a delusion. But then he starts to notice some things that start to make him second guess as well. So it is super creepy. If you love kind of like demonic stories, this definitely has an element of that into it, and I highly recommend this one. This is one that I absolutely loved, and this is probably one that I will reread. I do remember quite a bit of it because I really liked it, but it's definitely one that would be on my reread list because I liked it so much. And it's called Possessed by Kate Can, and it says, she thought it was an escape, but she might be trapped forever. Rain can't wait to get away from the stifling heat of summer of London, from her controlling older boyfriend Damien, from the tiny apartment she shares with her mother and little brother. So when she finds a job at a secluded country estate, Rain jumps at the chance to escape. But as soon as she arrives, her retreat feels like another prison. The ancient estate is suffocating, filled with spooky relics and strange energy that seems to surround her everywhere she goes. Rain wants to believe it's all just her imagination, but as she spends more time in the country, she becomes more convinced that there's something out there, something that wants her to stay forever. So she works basically as a waitress at this estate. It's kind of like an old castle, and they've turned it into a tourist attraction, and there's a restaurant there, and she is a waitress at this estate. And she has this little cottage off to the side that she gets to kind of stay at, and it is super creepy. And every time that she goes in there, she just feels like there's something in there with her, and all she can do is once she gets home to that little cottage, she just like curls up on her bed and is just terrified and just is so scared and just falls asleep, hoping nothing's going to wake her up in the middle of the night. And then as she's at work, weird things start to happen in the castle, and she feels like this place is possessed by something, and it's coming after her as well. So very creepy story. Definitely good for fans of horror. So this book is The Forbidden by F.R. Tallis, and I also have a book review of this up on my old channel. I have talked about this one on here before, but this one basically it actually has quite a few different elements into it, and it is a historical fiction as well. So it's set in 1873. 1873, when the ambitious Dr. Paul Clement takes a job on the island of Saint Sebastian, he has dreams of finding cures for tropical diseases. After witnessing the ritualistic murder of a young boy who was allegedly already deceased, he is warned never to speak of what he has seen. Back in Paris, Paul's attentions turn to studying the nervous system and resuscitation through electricity. So what are those things called? Those paddles? Clear paddles. He's working on inventing that. Paul is told of patients who have apparently died, been brought back to life, and while they lay between life and death, witnessed what they believe to be heaven itself. Using forbidden knowledge he swore never to use, he attempts to experience what everyone else has seen. But something goes horribly wrong. When Paul returns to the land of the living, it is possible that he brings something else back with him, an unspeakable evil so powerful it can never be banished. So this actually does lack a bit of information on the synopsis. So basically, if we go back to what it said in the beginning about him witnessing the ritualistic murder of this young boy, basically he is told when he leaves the island that if he ever says anything about this to anyone, that when he dies, he is going to go to hell, basically. Of course, it's years later when he gets back, from this trip, and he ends up telling a good friend what he had saw years before. And he doesn't really think anything of it. It's been years and years and years, and they are miles and miles and miles away. But then when he goes on to test out this defibrillator, that's what it's called. When he goes, oh, sorry, you guys, my dog just walked into my camera. When he goes to test out this defibrillator on himself, he of course dies and is wanting to be brought back to life. And when he dies, he does in fact go to hell, and it appears that he brings something back with him. So this one's super spooky. It has a lot of different layers to it as well, and I really enjoyed this one. I think you guys would too. Next is The Woman in the Walls by Amy Lukovics, and Amy Lukovics is a really great writer. She writes a lot of horror, and a lot of her stuff is really, really well done. But it says, do you hear them calling? Lucy Acosta's mother died when she was 3. Growing up in a Victorian mansion in the middle of the woods with her cold, distant father, she explored the dark hallways of the estate with her cousin Margaret. They're inseparable, a family. When her Aunt Penelope, the only mother she has ever known, tragically disappears while walking in the woods surrounding their estate, Lucy finds herself devastated and alone. Margaret has been spending a lot of time in the attic. She claims she can hear her dead mother's voice whispering from the walls. Emotionally shut out by her father, Lucy watches helplessly as her cousin's sanity slowly unravels. Now my dog's playing with her toy, so this is great. Can you stop? Can you please? But when she begins hearing voices herself, Lucy finds herself confronting an ancient and deadly legacy that has marked the women in her family for generations. I am sorry. Here I'm trying to read this spooky synopsis, and then we just got squeaking going in the background. I'm sorry. So if you know me, you know that I love a haunted house story. So any sort of creepy things to do with a haunted house, especially an ancient mansion, I am all about that. So this one is another historical fiction, and it's called White Crow by Marcus Sedgwick. And it says, supposing you wanted to prove something important. Supposing you wanted to prove, for argument's sake, that there is life after death. 1789, 10 months, 6 days. I believe he intends to practice some unholy rite, a summoning, a conjuration, a thing of magic. 2 lives, 2 centuries apart. But they walked the same paths, lived in the same house, became obsessed by the same question. When city girl Rebecca steps into the quiet streets of Winterfold that relentlessly hot summer, her uneasy friendship with strange Ellen Fairleth sets in motion a shocking chain of events. It's quite a horrible story. I love it. So this does not give a lot of information on the book, but basically it kind of goes between 2 perspectives. So like I said, it's centuries apart. So basically centuries ago, something happened in this small town that now, years and years later, this girl is finding out about. But it's centuries later, and this girl moves to this small town. She's living in the same place, the same house as this character that we're reading about from before. And she starts to realize something strange has happened here years ago. So it's very, very spooky. It's very atmospheric. It's a great read for Halloween season. And it's very mysterious. So definitely I would give this one a read as well. It's very, very spooky. Okay, so the first book that we are going to talk about is actually an anthology, and it's called The Doll Collection. So it is edited by Ellen Detlove, and it is just a bunch of different short stories about creepy, haunted, scary dolls. So I know, like, a couple of years ago, I don't know if this is still quite as big a thing as it used to be, but I remember that there was quite an influx of videos on YouTube about haunted dolls and people buying haunted dolls off of eBay and making YouTube videos about it. And I always liked watching those. I'm not too sure why, but I love creepy things. I love scary things. That doesn't just stop at my interest in books. It goes out through movies and all over the place. But this one is really, really, really good. And, you know, I've got to say, I have quite a few anthologies on my shelves. And I don't typically like to read them, so I don't even know why I always buy them. Like, I think I'm going to like them, but then I end up not even reading them. I have so many, but I really enjoyed this one. There's a few stories in here in particular that are really, really creepy. So these are all like haunted dolls or like creepy things about dolls. The synopsis says that it's an anthology designed to frighten and delight, featuring tales of dolls from best-selling and award-winning authors, compiled one by one of the top editors in the field. A treasured toy box of all original dark stories about dolls of all types, including everything from puppets and poppets to mannequins and baby dolls. So if you like anthologies, and especially if you're interested in creepy haunted dolls, this one's definitely for you. There are so many different stories in here. I think there is, let's see here. There's quite a few. There's 18. So 18 different stories. And there is there's 344 pages in the book. So the thing that I do like about anthologies is that it's like, I find that they're really good to read like right before bed. Not that you necessarily want to read this right before bed because you'll be having nightmares all night, but that's what I like about anthologies, is like being able to read just like one or two quick stories before bed. But yeah, this one I highly recommend. If you're into creepy dolls, you're gonna like this. Okay, so this next book, I really went back and forth on whether or not I should actually add it into this video. So for these videos, I like to pick books that have under 5,000 reviews on Goodreads. I feel like if it has under 5,000 readers, then most likely most of you won't have heard of the book. This one has closer to 10,000 readers, which still isn't a huge amount, but it's a book that I really don't think a lot of you probably will have heard of. It is an older book, so that's also part of the reason. And it's one that I remember my mom reading years and years ago, and I couldn't for the life of me ever remember the title of this book or even what it was about. Like, she read it, I remember her reading it, and I was interested in it, but it was like, I was still young enough that it wasn't a book that would be appropriate for me to read, but I always wondered about the book. And she had given it away, like, you know, probably after she had finished reading it, and I always wondered about this book, and I had no idea what this book was. And then one day, a few years ago, I was in a used bookshop, and I just happened to stumble upon it, and I just saw it there on the shelf, and I got so excited because I knew by the look of the book that that was the book that I had always wanted to read that my mom had, but I didn't know what the title of the book was or who the author was or anything like that. And whenever I mentioned it to my mom, she of course didn't remember because she had read it years and years before. So I was so excited to pick this one up. And it is called The Diary of Ellen Rimbauer. And I always thought that this was a nonfiction book. I thought it was a real diary, but I don't actually think it is. And it reads like an actual diary. So I spent this entire time thinking that it was an actual nonfiction book, and it was the real diary of Ellen Rimbauer. And it's about her life at Rose Red. So I'm going to read you the synopsis of it. And it says, at the turn of the 20th century, Ellen Rimbauer, the young bride of Seattle industrialist John Rimbauer, began keeping a remarkable diary. This diary became the secret place where Ellen could confess her anxieties about her new marriage, express her confusion over her emerging sexuality, and contemplate the nightmare that her life was becoming. The diary not only follows the development of a girl into womanhood, it also follows the construction of the Rimbauer mansion called Rose Red, an enormous home that would be the site of so many horrific and inexplicable tragedies in the years ahead. The Diary of Ellen Rimbauer, My Life at Rose Red, is a rare document, one that gives us an unusual view into the daily life among the aristocracy in the early 1900s, a window into one woman's hidden emotional torment, and a record of the mysterious events at Rose Red that scandalized society at the time. So this house, definitely haunted. and you get to see how she's feeling about things, like, you know, at the beginning when they're just moving into the mansion, her husband is building this for her, and strange things start to happen. She starts to question herself, she starts to question her husband, she starts to question the mental state of everyone, and you're just like really along for the ride and seeing what is happening. And it's very, very eerie and very, very creepy. I like stories that also take place in the 1900s. I really like historical fiction, like horror historical fiction. I love that. And that one gives us this as well. And it really does read as though it is nonfiction. Like, I didn't learn until afterwards that this wasn't nonfiction. And as I was reading this, I thought it was. And it passed for me. Like, I was surprised to find out that this actually is a work of fiction. And I kind of wish that it wasn't, because it would make it obviously a lot more creepy. But this one, like I said, I was on the hunt for this book for years. So I definitely wanted to make sure that I mentioned it to you guys because I really enjoyed it. It was well worth the wait. I was so happy that I finally found it. And to be honest, this one is one that I might end up reading again. I don't reread a lot of books, but this is one that I might end up rereading again. This fly, what is happening? Go away. The next book is one that has one of the most beautiful covers ever, but The Beast is an Animal by Peter Nell van Arsdale. And this one, I think I found it at Walmart, and I was just struck by the cover. And I remember thinking, like, picking it up and thinking, please be a good synopsis, please be a good synopsis, because I really wanted to buy this just because of the cover. And then the synopsis actually sounded really good, and the book ended up being really good, so it's all a happy coincidence that, you know, you get a really pretty cover and the book is actually good too. I think I've talked about this maybe once on my channel before, and it's a really, really cool book. It's very beautifully written as well. I remember the first chapter of this book. This is the only time I've ever done this. The first chapter of this book, I read it and I just thought it was so beautifully written that I actually went back and reread the first chapter because it was just beautiful. And it's not like quite like the first chapter kind of gives you a little hint into the overall kind of spookiness, the overall vibe of the book. The whole book isn't written quite like that, but it was just a beautiful first chapter, side note. Anyways, Alice was 7 the first time she saw the Soul Eaters. Twin sisters, they radiated an energy that excited Alice. Through them, she felt the wilderness of the forest and the beast within it. Too late, she learned of their powers to destroy. At 15, Alice knows too much about both the lure and the danger of the Soul Eaters. She lives in a world of adults who are terrified of their power. Fear of the Soul Eaters and of the beast rules their lives. Even more, they fear the ways in which the beast may lurk among them, and within a girl like Alice. As the threat posed by the Soul Eaters grows, Alice must undertake a journey through the wild danger of the forest. But the greatest danger is not outside her. Alice hides a truth about herself that she can reveal to no one. Alice's secret about who and what she is terrifies her most of all. And in order to save her world, she must also risk losing herself. So we've kind of got this story of self-discovery going on with Alice as she's kind of taking on this journey that she has to go through. She's kind of discovering who she is, and also kind of her world. She's coming to some realizations about the world around her that she's been growing up in, and that maybe everything isn't quite as it seems, and maybe she can't trust the people that she's grown up around as much as she thinks that she can, and that maybe there's some, without giving it away, like maybe some things are being misunderstood by these people. We have that, but then we also have the threat that's in the woods. Like, she's going through this forest, she has to travel through this forest where these Soul Eaters lurk, and so there's obviously that kind of paranoia going on within the book as well. and how she's going to be coping with that, and what happens when she inevitably runs into this evil. But yeah, this one, 5 out of 5. I feel like I have stories for all of these books today, like little personal anecdotes about each of these books that I've picked out. This book is called Spellbook of the Lawson, found by Moira Fowley Doyle. That's such a mouthful of a name. The story about this one is that one of my favorite booktubers, Haley in Bookland, talked about this quite a few times on her channel a few years ago, probably when the book first came out, I imagine. And I remember like this cover, but once again, same thing as my mom, I didn't ever remember what the book was called, and I never actually took the time to screenshot it or write it down or anything like that. Lots of times when I watch YouTube, I'm just getting ready or whatever, and I'm like, oh, that book sounds good, and then I've seen her talk about it a few times, and then eventually I had this cover in my head, and I thought, okay, I want to get that book, and I had to keep going back and re-watching all of Haley's old videos until finally I came upon one where she was talking about this one again, because I wanted to read it. So this one is about witchcraft, witches, sort of, and I love that. I love anything to do with witches. If you're not careful, who you can spend your whole life looking for or what you've lost. One stormy summer in a small Irish town, things begin to disappear. It starts with trivial stuff, hair clips, house keys, socks, but soon it escalates to bigger things. A memory, a heart, a classmate. Olive can tell that her best friend Rose is different all of a sudden. Rose isn't talking, and Olive starts to worry she's losing her. Then, the diary pages written by someone named Laurel begin to appear all over town, and Olive meets 3 mysterious strangers, Ivy, Hazel, and her twin brother Rowan, secretly squatting in an abandoned housing development. The trio are wild and alluring, but they seem lost too, and like Rose, they're holding tightly to painful secrets. When a tattered handwritten spellbook falls into the lives of these 6 strangers, it changes everything. The spellbook is full of charms to conjure back that which has been lost, and it lists a part for each of them to play in the calling. It might be their best chance to set everything back to rights, but only if they're willing to pay the price. So, once again, anything to do with witchcraft, spells, I'm totally here for that. So next is a book that I listened to on audiobook, and it is called The Apartment by S.L. Gray. And the concept for this one is haunted houses or haunted apartments, travel, possession, you know, all things that are perfect for a horror novel. A high concept psychological chiller about a troubled married couple on a house swap from hell. Mark and Steph live an idyllic life with their young daughter in sunny Cape Town until one day when 3 men in masks violently break in. Traumatized but physically unharmed, Mark and Steph are unable to return to normal and are living in constant fear. When a friend suggests they take a restorative vacation abroad via a popular house swapping website, it sounds like the perfect plan. They find a nice artistic couple with a charming apartment in Paris who would love to come to Cape Town. How could Mark and Steph resist the idyllic, light-strewn pictures and the promise of a romantic getaway? But once they arrive in Paris, they quickly realize that nothing is as advertised. As their perfect holiday takes a deadly turn, the cracks in their relationship grow even wider, and dark secrets emerge from Mark's past. Deftly alternating between 2 complex and compelling narrators, The Apartment is terrifying tour de France of horror, of psychological thrills, and of chilling suspense. So we find these characters, you know, like it says, they're kind of having a really hard time. They're trying to escape their life, trying to kind of get a fresh start. And on this holiday, the apartment is not what it seems whatsoever. And there's some sort of force there that begins to kind of work its way both between them and within them. We'll just say that. All right, you guys, I really hope that you enjoyed today's video. Make sure you let me know in the comments down below if you liked this style of video, if you'd like me to do some more like it. And also let me know if you've read any of those books that I've mentioned in this video and what your thoughts on them were. I hope you guys are having an awesome day, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye.